Okay, let's get started. Woo! So tonight is the very first nonprofit night. We're gonna get started. Thank you guys for coming. So tonight we're joined by Little Lights. We're joined by Larsh. We're joined by Young Life. And we're joined by International Justice Mission. So, I think I'm really excited for where we're going with tonight. I think we have the right time, the right people group to really be thinking about these things. We've been playing a lot of Ultimate Frisbee. This is going to be about an hour conversation, so you probably want to try to find a seat of some sort. We can kind of move the chairs around. We could probably move the pizza around so that that table's a little bit more inviting for people. And yeah, that works. Okay, so tonight is the very first nonprofit night. And the reason why I think we're here tonight is I really want to talk about two of our most precious resources, okay? That's time and money, and how we can use that in a more unified way. So I think the reason why that time and money has such a control over us is the fact that we have a limited worldview, and we lack trust in God that He's going to be able to provide for us. I think the limited worldview that we come from is constantly being hit at us through our consumerism. Is constantly being kind of thrown our way and saying, you're going to be happy if you have this one thing, if you have this vacation home at the beach and you're able to relax. And what we see time and time again is that kind of leaves us feeling empty, and it feels us leaving maybe a little bit purposeless. And so we realize that if we can give up control over our time and over our money, we can live a little bit more filled lives, a little bit more full lives, purposeful lives, and we can live with a lot more freedom. And so that's what I really want to talk about tonight. There's a couple things that I think I want to use as a kind of baseline for what we're talking about, so that we can really kind of set the stage for some of these nonprofit organizations. And that is something that Jesus talks about, is that the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but He came so that we might have life, and life to the full. And so that is something that if we're thinking about the freedom that we have to be able to go after some of these nonprofit organizations that we're passionate about, we need to understand that there's a fuller life when we give up some of the control over that time and that money that we are so attached to sometimes. We learn a little bit from Jesus when He's saying, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former." And so when I think about this, I think what's really important is to recognize that the work that we're trying to do, the volunteer work that we're trying to do, the money that we're trying to raise, we're not trying to do that out of an obligation. We're trying to do that out of the freedom that we find when we put money toward the justice and the mercy and faithfulness, or when we put our time toward justice, mercy, and faithfulness. I think something that Brian Stevenson actually talks about in the Equal Justice Initiative and Just Mercy, the book that he just wrote, he really presses home to a Bible verse that I really want to be kind of our mission statement for our group, and that is that we should open our mouth for the mute, for all those who are destitute. We should open our mouth. We should judge righteously, but we should defend the rights of the poor and needy. And so I want us to advocate for our city. And so we did that in a couple different ways. A couple of us came together, probably several of us, I think 13 of us came together a couple weeks ago, and we started to think, how do we, at a macro level, advocate for our city? When you look at some of these nonprofit organizations, there's a ton. There's probably a dime a dozen, right? I mean, there's just a ton of nonprofit organizations to walk through. And so it really helps if you sit down for a second and you start thinking at a macro level, what are some of these nonprofit organizations standing for? And what are the categories that we're passionate about? And so education, mental health, immigration reform, racial reconciliation, religious freedom, young adult ministry, modern day slavery, women's health, services for seniors, immigrants and refugees, prison ministry, homelessness, food security, domestic abuse, legal aid, criminal justice. I've listed off a ton. it would be interesting to kind of start to sit back and think, are there organizations or categories of organizations that we don't have represented? Because ultimately, we want to put together a catalog of nonprofit organizations in our city, in our country, that we can really be advocating for. And so we want to organize that in a way that is structured, in a way that we can start to collect this information from all these different nonprofit organizations. So the common question that people say when they come to DC, oh, I love getting involved with young adults, but I don't know how, or I don't know where, or I don't know what to do. And so if we can answer those questions by listing out an organization, we have a point of contact for that organization. We have a one-off way to volunteer for that organization. We have a continual way to volunteer for that organization. We have a one-off way to give to that organization. And we have a continual way to give to that organization. I think that is what can really give us the blueprint for how we can support an organization, right? This microphone is not one. But then at the end, I think this is where it's pretty important, is that we start to then, we can socialize ambassadors for these organizations. And so how cool would it be? Imagine a day if we could sit down and we could say, hey, we're passionate about young adult ministry, or we're passionate about immigration services, and we go to a catalog, and then we start to click through that catalog, and we see that 15 of our friends have signed up for prison fellowship. And we think, oh man, Amelie, she's involved over here. Man, maybe I could just have a conversation with her when we're at Ultimate Frisbee. And that is going to start conversations in ways that we haven't had before. And so I think an ambassador is somebody that can simply communicate the needs of an organization. They don't have to be on staff for the organization. They don't have to know a ton about the organization. But if they can fill out the columns for an organization, they can get somebody plugged into that organization. And in my eyes, they can be an ambassador for that organization. I would love to have 30 ambassadors for Little Lights after we're done tonight. I would love to have that same for L'Arche, same for Young Life, same for International Justice Mission. So that's kind of what we broke down in this catalog. And so following up after tonight, we want to identify new organizations that are not currently in this catalog that I will send you all after this. I want us to figure out and consider what are the organizations in the catalog that we would want to become an ambassador for. Okay, maybe we want to become an ambassador, but we don't know enough about that organization. Well, okay, so then find the point of contact from that organization and learn a little bit more. After 10 minutes of hearing from these organizations, you could probably become an ambassador. We've identified a donor in the area that would be willing to support the redesign and the organization of this catalog. And so if you're interested, if you know of summer interns or if you have a designer mentality, I'm thinking 20 to 30 hours of work would be really cool to start to populate and really fill out this catalog in a way that can really add value to our city. And then finally, we want to do this on a every other month basis. We want to get together and we want to promote different organizations. And I would love for this to be a more structured way. I'd love to involve you all. This is not the blueprint for how we promote organizations in the area. Maybe what we do one night is we sit back and we have 5 different organizations come, and they each have booths that we then split off, and each organization will come and speak for 20 minutes 3 different times, and you can go to those different organizations as an elective. That could be an alternative approach to what we could do at one night. But just imagine filling up this space or filling up other fields. And so that's really kind of what we have moving forward. But I want to check yourself and check your motivations in which you are doing this type of work. And I love Matthew 5:16 says, in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who's in heaven. They're not trying to give you glory. You're trying to reflect the glory to our Father who's in heaven. Finally, we love because we were first loved. If we can explain the way that we're doing something, the work that we're doing for an organization, for an ulterior motive, other than the fact that we simply want to love the people in this organization or love the people that this organization is serving, if we can explain that, an ulterior motive for that, then we're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. And we want to really focus in on why are we doing something. So, this is a slide that I will remind you all of at the end, but we're going to ask you all to fill out a survey. We're going to end up, at the end of tonight, we're going to break out in different groups, and we're going to start talking about what are the other organizations that we can be thinking about? What are the other categories that we can be thinking about? There's a, it's tinyurl.com/nonprofit questions. And so you can go on and fill out a form about some of the organizations that we've already put in the catalog that you might be passionate about or that you might be able to help contribute toward. So, with that as a baseline and 10 minutes underway, I would like to introduce Caitlin Curran from International Justice Mission. Caitlin goes to my church.